Hello and welcome to the Venue Success Podcast. I am your host, Tirzah Caffee, and today I am continuing season 1 with my new friend and guest today, Alissa Pekrul. I'm so excited to have you here today, and this is actually quite exciting for me because the podcast has really opened a lot of doors for meeting new people and hearing other stories, and it's just been so fantastic to get to know you a little bit this morning as just looking at your beautiful website, and it's just so exciting to see these new venues succeeding in incredible ways. So if you listen to the podcast, you know that we start every episode with crazy stories with Tirzah because people have lost their minds. And I just want to soapbox hard on DJs today. And I don't always do this, but I'm going to tell you a few stories and then give you some feedback for how you can deal with difficult vendors and specifically DJs. Because I am a firm believer that a DJ can literally make or break a reception. They are the ones that are front and center. As a planner myself, it's so hard because they start talking in a microphone and there's nothing that you could do to stop them really if they are just going off. Just bonkers. So it's so important to me to have great DJs that you work with. But I'm going to give you a couple of stories and literally I could sit here for probably a couple hours and tell you crazy DJ stories. But at the end of a few of these stories I'm going to tell you specifically how we combat dealing with, some of these challenging vendors. But something happened, it wasn't too long ago, but I'm kind of fourth string at our venue with producing weddings now. I've been doing this for so long that I've hired people to now do weddings. I've done around 2,500. I figure I've paid my dues. But we have DJs that come in and they're at various levels of professionalism, right? And we had a younger female DJ that came in once, and she just came in hot at me. And I was stepping in for one of my coordinators that was sick. And so we hadn't really had time to build much rapport with each other. But I did introduce myself as an owner, hoping that would just establish at least some kind of authority with her. And she literally looked at me and she was like, "Yeah, I just need you to know I'm in charge." So I was like, "Wait, is this a joke? I don't even understand what's happening here." And she instantly got into a power battle with me. And we know who's going to win that battle. But she was in this battle with me all night long. And I told her, I'm like, I have a very specific flow for how we handle dinner service and when toasts happen and all this stuff. And we literally had just opened the buffet and I saw her gathering people to do toasts. And I ran up to her and I'd already told her when toasts happen after dinner, right? After dinner. And she looked at me and she just slowly raised the mic up to her mouth and announced for all the people giving the toast to come up to the DJ booth. And I thought I was going to lose my mind. And she did it. It was just like a 3-year-old that you told not to do something. And they just, you know what I mean? They just look at you and they're like, ha ha ha, I'm in charge. It just felt so childish. I can't even begin to tell you. So it was, needless to say, it was a bit of a chaotic reception, very frustrating. And I ended up calling the owner of that DJ company on the following Monday. And I was like, "Hey, listen, she's never invited back here again. I need you to understand." And there was so much more to it that I'm not going to go into today, but I'm like, and that was one of my suggestions for you guys. If you're dealing with a vendor that is really difficult, if they're not the owner, you need to contact the owner. And if they are, you need to have a very intentional conversation if they're a one-man show and be like, "Hey, listen, that is not the way we operate here. And you're not going to be welcome back if you ever do that again." But we see a lot of people DJing that come in and it's kind of like their side gig. I don't know if you've experienced that very much. And it's just like, "Oh, well, I'm an accountant during the day, but I'm living my best life here at night," good DJing. We had a guy come in recently and he brought his wife and middle school daughter, and the middle school daughter was the MC for the reception. And I'm like, this has to be a joke. Like, this has to be a joke. And no, we had another one that came in. These are all literally have happened in the last year, where the bridal party was going to have their grand entrance, right? It's a big, pomp and circumstance, and it's a big part of the show, right? Introducing the bridal party and the bride and groom, and they were getting ready to come in, and he hands the microphone to my wedding planner and was like, girl, I don't want to do this. Can you just announce them in? And she was like, no, I'm not announcing them in. Like, you have one job. Like, I'm doing like 50 things right now, and then this past week, literally this happened where a DJ called the bride 2 days before the wedding and said to her, I have not heard from your venue. They haven't sent me a timeline. They haven't communicated with us. When we had gone back and forth, probably about 12 to 15 emails with him, sent a timeline. He signed a DJ policy, because all of our vendors have to sign something, and we send them the timeline. We check in with them, ask them if they have questions. We had all of this. And he contacted the bride and was like, they've never talked to me. So again, the bride calls us. She's upset at us, assuming that we didn't do our job. And just so absolutely, first of all, we called him and we're like, dude, don't lie. Like, why you do that? It doesn't make any sense why you would do that. And all of these things led us to institute something that may seem kind of odd to you, but because we're all inclusive, most of our people, about 80% of them, use our in-house DJ. They're a really great price. We really sell them hard. And so most people do. But there are those that are just like, they have a certain vibe that they're looking for, and maybe they don't trust our recommendation. I'm not sure. They're both females, so maybe some of them don't want a female DJ. It's possible. But we tell our clients coming in that if they don't use our DJ, that there's a $350 outside coordination fee. And we started that about maybe 18 months ago. And that's worked out really well. It's done a couple things. One, it really steers people towards using ours because they don't want to pay that fee. And it also helps compensate us for the extra time that we know that we're going to spend with these part-time DJs, basically doing most of their job for them, because that is really what happens. And clients really haven't blinked at this fee at all. So we charge that for if they do outside florist or an outside DJ, because those are two lots of moving pieces types of vendors. So if you're not all inclusive, I'm a big believer that you should have a preferred vendor list of vetted people. And not everyone does this, but I'm telling you, these vendors are a reflection of your business, whether you want it to or not. All those people, and it's mortifying to me when we have a bad DJ, because I feel embarrassed that is happening at my venue. And it's, that's a whole nother thing. But DJs, I think, bother me more than anything else, because I just feel like sometimes they come in and, again, either one, they are apathetic to the whole situation. They don't care. No, you MC. No, you do it. I'm going to bring my middle schooler. Like, how does that make any sense? Or they think that they're the bee's knees and they are God's gift to DJing and they're the boss and you better feed me on time. And, very arrogant. So they are challenging. And yes, DJs have lost their mind just like the rest of the world. They're challenging to deal with for sure. So in conclusion here, we have a no-go list. And we actually, this DJ that I was telling you about this past weekend, he's now on the no-go list because he's come 2 times. Both times he's lied. He's been disrespectful. He hasn't played by our rules. And I don't really give a third chance when it comes to that. So what happens too, and this is just the last tip, is that if people are bringing in outside vendors, they have to be approved by us ahead of time. We need to make sure that they're professionals, that they have liability insurance. You're going to be in our property. We need to make sure that they are a professional vendor, and we don't do frienders at our space just because there's so many liabilities that go with that. So anyway, I will get off my soapbox for now and get to the fun stuff. And again, just welcome Alissa Pekrul to our podcast today. And I'm so excited to hear more about you. So
thank you. Thanks for having me.
Tell me, Of course. Tell me just a brief reflection on this whole DJ situation. Like, what is your experience with DJs at your venue?
I can relate more than you know regarding DJs. I will kind of flip it a little bit and say, it's very important to establish preferred vendors, like you're saying, because you know that they are reputable, they work hard, you know how they operate. So I have been able to have a couple of relationships with a few DJs, one in particular I've been with since the beginning. So we become good friends, and I do think it's valuable to establish the relationship, when you're first starting, because then you have that vendor that always has your back and vice versa. So I have had DJs though that it's been difficult. One instance where I was the DJ, on the microphone, I am not qualified and I don't want to be in that position. So I will do it, as a venue owner, but I'd rather leave it to the professionals. So
Yeah.
but for the most part, I think, pushing for our preferred vendors, like you said, is very helpful. And having that preferred network has helped us push out the no-goes.
Yeah, exactly. And I think sometimes people are afraid to tell clients, you have to choose from this list, but I don't think you should be afraid. I think there's so many people out there in this, gig economy where they're trying to make a side buck and things like that. And you have to protect the reputation of your business. And I really, that's even something after all these years that we're trying to tighten up as well. So, okay. So tell us about your wonderful venue. You are the COO of the barn at Farrington Hollow,
Yes.
outside of Buffalo in upstate New York. So tell us about your property and how you guys came to want to be in the wedding industry.
Yeah, so our story is a little bit unusual. My parents are from Buffalo. I was born and raised in Miami, Florida. My dad got a full scholarship to the University of Miami. That's how I ended up in Miami. But we would always visit here summer and winters to come and ski or camp. So it almost became like my second home. So I became very familiar with the area. And, right before COVID, my husband and I remember having a conversation saying, maybe we should move here, because we started talking about, renovating the cabins and, listing them and creating a venue space. My parents and I had that conversation. So we decided to move, and then COVID happened. So when we were ready to move, it was the best decision because my son was 4. So it gave him the freedom to roam because we're on a 160-acre property. So we are an active farm. My son has learned how to, corral the turkeys, things like that. So it's been, really great for all of us. I think that I wasn't expecting to be the COO of a venue. Really, that wasn't my goal. I was a liability adjuster before this, which kind of plays into my role right now. But I always say this position chose me. So I just kind of fell into it. And so I think that that's important to say. If you think you can't do it, you can. You just got to have the drive and patience, because if you don't have those two, I think it's going to be a tough road. We've established ourselves to be a lodging portion, and also we started in a tent in, 2018 or 2020, and we wanted the exposure, we wanted the experience before we established the barn, and this is our second year in the barn. So I've done probably over 60 weddings so far. So hopefully we'll get more weddings throughout the week, and kind of establishing public events, things like that, to cater to all events, not just weddings.
Amazing. I'm going to circle back a little bit just to fill in a little bit piece of the story. So when did you guys buy? I know your parents are the primary owners. When did you buy that 160 acres?
So we purchased it probably closer to 11 years now. When we bought it, it was on several parcels. There was a ton of cleanup. We had to renovate the cabins because they were left for so long. So that was the first major project, is clean up and renovating, and then, adding additional lodging options and figuring out like where we're going to place this tent. And, the design of the barn came next. So it's evolved, and it's really crazy to even think about what it looked like prior to where we are right now. It's really hard to like close my eyes and even see that. So I'm really
Yeah.
happy with where we are right now.
It's a lot of work. So
Yes.
kudos to you guys. I see you.
Yeah.
I totally get that. So who works kind of predominantly with the weddings? So are you guys a more DIY style venue or kind of what's your business model?
So when we first started, kind of we didn't offer coordinating services, but I'm a very hands-on person. I like to build the connections, and I felt like if I didn't feel connection, it wasn't all there. So we decided to then add coordinating so that we can build those relationships. We can make sure it goes well because who knows your venue more than you do? So we decided to add the coordinating in, and I think that's helped us understand that what are our expectations and how do we want each wedding to go. And so I think that that kind of gives the couples and the clients ease too, knowing that they're in good hands. So I think that's our little niche, and I really think that they appreciate that we're going to have their back, the day of their big day, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. So let's talk about construction. So there's a lot of people listening. I think predominantly a lot of people listening will probably be on the newer side of venue ownership because they're trying to gather up all of the nitty gritty of what it's like and things that they should look out for. So how did you go about choosing the design for your barn? And are there any regrets or things that you wish that you had done differently on your design?
Yeah, so when we first started thinking about what our venue was going to look like, we knew we wanted a barn structure. We wanted to be modern. We wanted to, be able to call it a barn, but not really look like it. So it's black and white, which is very, neutral. And we wanted it to be 2 stories at the beginning, but, with code and everything and the cost, because you got to factor that in too, we kind of switched gears and worked with an architect to understand, okay, how do we make this to not just gear towards one type of event, but how can we make it to where we can facilitate various types of events like baby showers, bridal showers, corporate events, things like that. So we have an indoor and outdoor area. So that kind of helps, we can just have the indoor events, but also open the doors and have it kind of flow to the outdoor area. So I think you got to kind of think of it as how can I facilitate multiple events? Because if you just focus on one type, you might be, pinning yourself just to that.
Right. So any regrets with your build? Like, do you feel really happy with your design?
I think I wouldn't say regrets, but we've definitely changed things along the way. Being an outdoor venue, sometimes there are negative aspects to that where it's not fully enclosed, so if you have a bad rainy day or a windy day that could affect your flow of the day. So we created a wall on one end of the pavilion, and we're looking for drop downs, things like that. So we're still kind of year after year getting the feedback to then fix or enhance the venue. So I think that even if you don't have it right the first year or the second year, you can always improve, the third or fourth, or I don't even know if there's an end, but I
No,
think there's
there's
always
not.
room to improve.
It's that whole concept of continuous improvement, right?
Yes,
Like it's
exactly.
just, if you're not growing, you're dying. So I
Yeah.
think that's really great. I was actually curious about that, looking at your website and your social media, and I saw the open air pavilion type of space. And I was curious how you handle that. So being in such a cold climate, are
Mhm.
you a seasonal venue then?
We are seasonal, but we stick to the indoors, so smaller events, during the colder months, the winter months. So we do, public events like Breakfast with Santa, a lot of holiday, corporate events we're going to start doing. We use our buffet room actually as a studio for photographers. So we're starting to navigate to other avenues to try to not just let our venue sit, but to make it public to where people can use it for various reasons, or, vendors can use it as well.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, would you guys consider yourself more a DIY venue? People could, work off your preferred vendor list and kind of pick and choose who they want.
Yeah, we never want to tell the clients who they have to use, but like you said, we want to try to push them to use our preferred vendors because it's almost easier for the client, the vendor, and the venue because we all know that they don't have to even come and tell me, hey, I'm here. They just start setting up, and that helps me because I'm just so busy on the day of that. It helps having those vendors that are comfortable and they can ask me any questions, but at least they feel comfortable as well in the venue. So I do feel like that's valuable.
Yeah, absolutely. I heard you say that this is a career that chose you, and I totally resonate with that. So, since this career has chosen you, I mean, I could tell that you care about what you do for sure, but what are some of the aspects of what you do in the day to day that bring you the most fulfillment and joy?
I try to be a great leader, so I try to be very hands-on with my staff. If I have to mop the floor, I'll mop the floor. If I have to, wash the dishes, I'll wash the dishes. So I try to make it to where I'll do anything that I ask them to do as well. So I focus greatly on my staff, but also I like building the relationships with the clients and making friendships with the vendors as well. So those things give me great fulfillment. And because it can be hard. I mean, there are days where it's really hard and it's like, well, how am I going to get past this? So there are difficult clients sometimes, and there are difficult days. As a business owner, it's hard to kind of navigate, all the finances, and because I handle all of that as well. So you just have to make sure that you're in the right headspace and you go take for a walk if you need to and kind of gather yourself. But if you have, like I said, if you have that drive, you can get through anything. And I think that having the clients and the vendors, have your back and know that you're creating those great relationships, that makes it a little easier. And I think that's what I value the most.
Yeah, I was actually just speaking at a NACE event, National Association of Caterers and Events, and their national has been around since the mid 50s. And I was speaking to them last night about this very thing. And I was basically telling them, like, these clients, they come and go, but we're family, like no matter where you are, like if you're in a big city or, a small town like yourself, like it's the wedding industry is still like pretty small, like you get to know
Yeah.
your people and it's kind of like these family dynamics, right? There's some people in your family that you are tighter with than others.
Yeah.
And there's some that yeah, it's just it could be a challenge, but also I agree with you that I feel like my full-time staff, my part-time staff that just work for me producing weddings, my vendors, we have such a tight knit like bond with each other. We've gone through a lot,
Yeah.
good days and bad days and everything in between. And so I tell people all the time, my favorite part of my job or my team,
Yeah.
because it's not the brides anymore, the grooms anymore. It's just not.
Yeah. Without a team, you're,
Yeah. Exactly. I love that you said that. And I think, I'm a big believer in creating teams where you can trust each other, where like you said, that you have each other's back and you could know, like, if you're in a pinch, let's pick on the DJs again, and they see that you're in a pinch, that they could pick up, where you left off and like cover for you for a minute or whatever
Yeah.
it is. I think that's really, really, really sweet. So what are some of the things that, because I know you've just been doing this for a few years, what are some of the challenges that you have faced just figuring out this whole wedding industry thing?
It's difficult to, figure out pricing at the beginning because you want to be competitive. You're understanding what you want to offer, what you don't want to offer. But I've learned that it can always change. So if you set it at a certain price, you might be setting yourself up a little low, like we did our first year, but you can always increase it to be more competitive with the market. And I think, thoroughly researching the market is one thing that's crucial when you're first starting. So that was a big challenge for us because there really isn't any venue like us in the area because we are so remote. So it's hard to figure out, okay, am I overcharging? Am I undercharging? But I think year after year, we start learning, our value and what we have to offer is worth, what we're putting out there. So the other thing for me is a challenge is living on site. So I am a yes person. I will say yes to literally everything. So I have to kind of pretend like I don't live here sometimes, where, it's so convenient for me to say yes because I just have to walk down the street and I'm at my house. So, it's hard to say no to meetings late at night and, phone calls late at night. So I think establishing boundaries has been a challenge for me, but I do feel like it gets easier, when you have staff that can help back you up because you can then spread the workload, and not be the only person that's taking on all of that. So there's a few challenges, and then, navigating what you want to offer. So we are an all-inclusive venue where we do offer the lodging, we do offer the decor service, the day of coordinating. So it was challenging at first to not offer that because it's like, I want to make sure this wedding or event goes off without a hitch. And I just saw some weddings, just needing that help. So I was stepping in, but then I was like, well, I feel like I should be able to add that cost in. So it's hard when you're first starting, I think, establishing yourself. There will always be challenges, even, to this day. But I think understanding that there will always be challenges and then learning how to fix those and understanding that you can always go back and change those things. You don't have to just continue where you are when you are at right now. You can always, add things or move things, whatever you need to do to be successful.
Love that you said that. And you're exactly right. I couldn't have said that better. So being someone that lived on property as a child in our venue, literally in our venue that we rented out. So our bedrooms were rented for weddings and we would lock all of our stuff in a closet and people would sleep in our bed. So that's like a whole new level.
I cannot imagine that.
It was terrible. But I swore that I would never do that with my kids. And I think that there is, we live 15 minutes away from our venue, so it's not too bad at all. But there are some challenges for sure living on site. And you're right. It's very difficult to have boundaries when you live on site. But I think time helps because you realize, oh my gosh, if I don't protect my capacity, I can't continue. It just becomes almost the boundaries are a necessity and not even hard eventually. Yeah. And you'll get there, I promise.
Yeah.
You get a little bit more jaded with time.
Yeah.
Which, got to be careful with that jadedness, but it's kind of just, you want to be able to make it a long time. You want this to be a successful legacy, build generational wealth, and you cannot do that if you run yourself ragged. So this is my friendly, sisterly advice to protect your health as well, mental, physical, all of that, because, and, our families can't get the leftovers. And that's a big deal. So speaking of family, I know that your parents own the property and you mentioned that you have a twin sister. So have there been challenges working with family? What has that been like for you?
They're going to see this, so I got to be careful.
I know.
But my parents, I think that we have a great bond, and I feel that sometimes we argue, sometimes we fight, because we all live on the property and we never really get away from each other unless we leave. So I think, but I wouldn't have it any other way. I mean, we're able to have each other's backs, rely on each other if anything goes wrong, ask for help when we need it. I think that there is sometimes there can be tension with, but understanding that we all have different opinions, and let's just find somewhere in the middle where we all agree, right? So I think we've learned over the years, and we all take each other's opinions, and kind of we have meetings in December. So we get to kind of go through all of, the pinpoints of the year and decide, like, how do we want to proceed next year? What needs to change? What do we need to do differently? Or what's going well? So I think having those meetings, even though it's just once a year, does help us. I think that, my parents do focus more on the agricultural side. So we all kind of have our little niche within this farm. And my sister helps with the marketing and social media. So she helps us from afar because she's still in Florida, where I'm from. but when she comes, she helps me and she dives right into events. So she's also in the event industry, so that's really helpful. She, helps me with the planning and a couple of the design features of, each event. If I need her, say, can you help me just design this? I'll shoot it over to her and she'll help me. So I think having that family aspect, yes, can be challenging. Any family, I think, will tell you that. But I think I get a lot of feedback saying, I don't just feel like a client. I feel like I'm part of their family. And that's what we want. We want our staff to feel like family. We want clients to feel like family. We want them to come back and we want them to come visit us again. We don't want to just be like, you're just another client on our books. That's not us. So
yeah,
I think that's really important.
Does your husband work with you?
Yes, he does more work in the wintertime. He does all the snow blowing, but he does have a full-time position in insurance. He looped me into insurance years ago, and I kind of take that into my job today. But he does, a lot of taking care of our son, because that's difficult when you have weddings on the weekends. And sometimes I feel like my summers just, fly by. So like you said, it's hard to protect that. You have to be mindful of it. So he does a lot of that and taking care of him. So I do appreciate that. But also he does help us whenever we need it. He helps set up our ceremony chairs, put them away, drives the tractor. So there's a lot of steps that go into each wedding. So my family kind of knows what their role is, and we kind of just piggyback on each other.
It's so much work. I think that's the thing that so many starting off, like you said in the beginning of the episode, like you really have to have the passion. You have to, have patience. You have to have that hard work ethic. And I firmly believe that you don't understand how hard it is until you get into it. Like you just can't even imagine what it feels like. And now at my age, I worked a 14-hour day. My coordinator got sick. So that is my role with weddings. Because I'm always the one that could jump in at the very last second, because it's easy for me to do that. Mm-hmm. I jumped in and I was like, oh, wow, at 45 years old, a 14-hour day is hitting my body a little bit different than when I was 25. It's hard work, but it is rewarding work for sure. So as we wrap up today, I'm just going to ask you this question. I didn't prepare you for this.
Okay.
But what would you like your legacy to be with this venue? In 10, 15, 20 years, like what would be a dream come true for you?
I think it would be, and just tying it all together, what we talked about already, is being a venue that is very family oriented, that cares about the community, their clients, the vendors coming in, and a venue where people feel welcome to come into. And I think, we try and maintain that right now, but I think that would be, if people say that and promote us as that, then that's my legacy right there. I'm doing a good job, because that's what I strive to do every day, is being a welcoming venue that is open to the community to host their events.
I absolutely love that. So beautifully said. And I second that. It's exactly how I feel about my venue as well. When people step on our property and they're like, the best compliment is they are like, wow, Tirzah, like this place feels different. There's just something about it. It feels different. It's not this corporate stale feeling. They come in and they feel our heart and our just love and our Southern hospitality. And that is just everything to me, that they could just walk through the garden without even meeting anyone and feel it. I mean, I'm like, I absolutely love that. But
those are the best compliments.
They are truly. Well, I want to just tell you, good job. And I know that this is a lot of hard work. And for those of you that have made it this far in the episode, thank you for tuning in today. And please look in the show notes and go follow them on social media. It's Barn at Farrington Hollow NY, and they have a beautiful Instagram. Their website is really, really beautiful. So kudos to your sister. She's been the one working on a lot of that. But I also just want to encourage all of you, as you're listening, be sure to subscribe to my channel to be notified of future episodes. And if you'd like to be a guest on my show, there's a link in our show notes where you can apply. So as we end today, Alissa, is there any final words that you would have for listeners?
I think it is to step out of your comfort zone, do things that make you feel uncomfortable. I mean, this makes me feel uncomfortable. I'm not used to doing podcasts, but I think the more you step out of your comfort zone, the more successful you'll be.
Absolutely. I mean, it's all about just being brave. I think that's what it is being brave, doing things that kind of make your heart race,
Yeah.
and those are the things that that are going to help you take things to the next level. So very well said. But thank you again, Alissa, for being on with us today. And we'll see all of you on our next episode. Have a great day.